To get in the Word. Last Sunday, blessed the wives' hearts. We spent the whole class on the wives. Submit yourselves to your husbands, and went through that. Taught it from a unique perspective. I thought a different perspective than I've ever taught it from before. Kind of under the idea of my daughters, really, having three girls and what they should be looking for in a husband, and how they should honor their husbands and treat their husbands. So we went through that. So today we're going to do our best to do the other part of this. So the next verse, and we'll read the next three verses just in case we don't spend as much time as I think we will on the husbands. But Cody's got that ready for us. Colossians chapter 3, verse 19, husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Verse 20, verse 21, children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. Verse 21, fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. I really like all four verses together. And as we spent, I think, probably 30 minutes just on verse 18 last week, if you can teach all four verses to children, young ladies and young men, youth groups, and then even as adults and elder adults, if you can really go through all four verses and at the same time, it really puts this great perspective and this great connection of how the Christian family should operate and how it'll work. And most of all, how to be successful, how to be blessed, and how to be happy. We see in the day which we live in so much brokenness and so much disconnection. It's tough. And I think if we really had emphasized maybe what the apostles' teaching and preaching here in these four verses, we would probably have such a blessed family life. And husbands, when we look at verse 19, and it says, love your wives. Husbands, love your wives. I think this is the New King James Version. And do not be bitter toward them. There's really two major aspects that we need to look at. First, the charge, husbands, love your wives. And when we talk about verse 18 and 19 about wives submitting yourselves to the husband as it is unto the Lord, I don't find many women that really have just a difficult time, wives that have an overly difficult time submitting, honoring, even following the leadership of their husband when their husband is doing their very best to try to love them. And I think that's why the Apostle Paul kind of says, okay, women, okay, wives, first thing we know is how stubborn a man is and how different a man is. So he talks to the wife first that, you know what, there's going to be some major challenges with you to start with, because you're going to have to do some extra forming and molding and shaping. And to be honest with you, it starts at a young age. My wife would have a very difficult time dealing with me in a lot of aspects today, but she done worked out a bunch of things back in the beginning of our marriage, so she didn't have to mess with them today. And as boys and men are growing up, there's, just as women have the certain genetics and certain chemicals and certain things and hormones that they have to deal with, men also have to learn how to deal with aggression and testosterone and things that make them feel different ways than maybe they should feel. And as men, a lot of times we are so bad to act before we ever think. I don't know if it's because of culture. Maybe it's because of the way we've been raised. Maybe it's just lack of teaching. Probably just lack of maturity. What we have always saw in the education system is that the female always seems to mature much quicker than the male in maturity. They act more like an adult before the male does. So I wonder sometimes if wives, Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into with the husband. Submit yourselves to the husband as it is unto the Lord. And then the next declaration, the next challenge, the next precept, he says, husbands, love your wives, and do not be bitter toward them. So we need to really address the love part. In the Greek word, it is that famous agape word that is mentioned, I think it's over 100 times in the New Testament. The Greek word's used, agape, this agape love. So Paul's words to the husbands safeguards his words to the wife. In other words, it'd be crazy for any individual, the Apostle Paul, to say, hey, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. Even if they treat you like a dog, even if they beat on you, if they whoop on you, if they try to make you commit sin. We went through all this last Sunday, that you can watch that back if you need to, about these special circumstances that are big issues with wives. But he safeguards what he says by saying, husbands, you love your wives. You agape your wives. The wives are to submit to their husbands. It's never excuses husbands acting like tyrants, overlords to their wives. Instead, a husband must love his wife. And that word there is agape. Now, the Greek word agape, which is supposed to be the highest expression of love that we can communicate in a word. In other words, if we're trying to give an adjective to what love is or how it should be, agape is this highest form in the Greek language that's supposed to be the highest expression of love. It's supposed to be a pure love, a selfless love, an unconditional love. But if we look at any language and we start looking into the Scripture, language at its very core is nothing more than a collection of symbols. It's nothing more than what society agrees will represent reality. That's all words are. It's what we all agree should represent reality. Our words for love are at best just tokens of the meaning of what love is. At best, our words are just tokens of it. I mean, it's cheap for you to say you love me if you are not really showing it in reality. They're just tokens of what love should be. They're not exact expressions of substance. We cram letters together. We say this is what those letters mean, but symbols alone can never fully communicate the truth of what they represent. The Bible tells us this, that God is love. Something the Apostle John taught in 1 John chapter 4, verse 16. If that's really true, that God is love, then love encompasses more than just the highest expression of selflessness. It's more than what we could ever put into words what love is, if God is love. We can't express the capacity, the vastness, the greatness of what love is if God is love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 describes love. By the extension of God, a laundry list of concepts. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts. It always hopes. It always preserves. This is also why within each of us, the presence of God, who is love, naturally expresses it in love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control, as Galatians chapter 5 would teach us. God is love. And because God lives within us, we express these characteristics that are in God. So for husbands, this means love. Well, let me take this back. When I think of this verse, I think of this pinnacle verse in Ephesians chapter 25, 5:25. If you know what that is, for husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave his life for her. Now, wives, submitting yourselves to your husbands doesn't look as bad to me as husbands. You got a high standard that you got to get to. And I want you to understand this. I don't think, as a husband, it's something that I can ever attain. But I can press toward the mark, I can push toward the mark, and I'm supposed to chase after that target, after that landmark. Now, here's why I'm saying this. Because God is love. And every time I think I've got love mastered, God shows me another aspect of what love should be. When I think that I just can't love anymore, God shows me where I've kind of missed the mark a little bit and how I can go another little bit in loving. So do you understand what I'm talking about? So husbands, love your wives. It's pretty simple. I thought this morning, every woman in the house is going to be very upset with me if I don't spend 30 minutes on husbands today, giving them their due diligence of what they deserve. And I thought, I'm not sure if I can spend 30 minutes on this trying to hit husbands as hard as I can, because one thing that is different about us, it doesn't take many words for us to know, well, yeah. It sometimes just takes a look for me to know that I'm in bad shape. So ladies, if I can't spend 30 minutes on this, understand it may just not take as much for us to understand we are not what we should be, and we've got to do better. And I also think that I could spend a little more time with the women because I live in a house full of women. So all I got to deal with is myself and my emotions, but I got to deal with 4 women in my house and all their deals. So I've had to learn to understand what is offensive, what's not offensive. And here's what gets me in my household. The love that I give my wife is a special love, and it's different than the love that I give my daughters. I can't treat them the same. And then all my daughters need a little bit of different type of love. They don't want the same love. They want love, they want my love, but they want to be loved a little different because they don't want to be just like each other. And I think we have to understand that with our wives. Every wife is not like every other wife in the world. On Valentine's Day, not every wife wants a bouquet of flowers. And sometimes when you send that bouquet of flowers, it's just not what she really wants. Well, let's move on. Some women do want a bouquet of flowers. And husbands, I know that it's confusing. And I know it's hard because sometimes I think I got it figured out and I really don't have anything figured out. And as soon as I think I got it, I've hit the bullseye, the target moves. And I've got to do it a different direction. But that's the whole part of loving. There's not going to be a recipe that you can just keep regurgitating. Oh, sure, there's some things that your wives love about you, like washing them dishes every day. Oh, gosh. Or maybe that dinner that you cook, that special dinner that she just loves. Or maybe just that you spend time with her somewhere. So very significantly, this puts an obligation upon husbands. A very big obligation. Now you got to remember also, when this is written under the Jewish, the Greek, and the Roman customs at this time, we didn't have women rights at this time. All power and privileges belong to the husband in regard to the wives, to fathers in regard to children, and masters in regard of slaves. There were no complementary powers. There were no privileges on part of the wives or the children of the slaves. Strictly speaking, agape can't be defined as just God's love, because men are said to agape sin and the world, but it can't be defined as sacrificial, giving, absorbing love. The word has little to do with emotion. It really does. The word agape really has, I think, very little to do with emotion, and it has a lot to do with self-denial. And what we say by self-denial for the sake of someone else. Sacrificing your time, sacrificing even your needs, your wants, your desire, your hobbies, whatever it might be, for the sake of somebody else. It is a love that loves without changing. Now listen to me. This ought to be in every marriage counseling session that there is. It hurts me deeply when I hear a spouse say, I just don't love him anymore. I just don't love her anymore. That wasn't the love that you're supposed to have when you married him or her. The love that you should have had, that you're supposed to have. Now listen, I mean, we all make mistakes. I guess it happens, right? And that's why I'm saying it needs to be in marriage counseling. This needs to be talked about with children, grandchildren. And even though that we've made mistakes and maybe we've had broken homes and we've had broken marriages, that doesn't mean if we have another opportunity to find a relationship in God that we should continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over. This love that's charged is a love that loves without changing. It's a love that sticks with somebody when they're in the hospital. It's a love, sis, that sticks by somebody when they're rehabbing. It's a love that you keep fighting to be better for your spouse, to be the best you that you can be for them, whatever that is and whatever level it is. Because as you know and as I know, as we get older, we may not always be the best physical version that we've ever been, but we can be the best spiritual version that we've ever been. It's a love without changing. It is a self-giving love that gives without demanding or expecting repayment. And I think that may be one of the greatest struggles that men probably have. Maybe women also, but I know from a masculine point of view, we give. It's like a business deal, a transaction. We're expecting something back in return. And most men, not all men, but a lot of men, especially men that are younger, that maybe, how can I put this, that are still kind of having struggles reacting without really thinking, or they're still working on that kind of like me, having that, okay, let me just step back for a couple of steps and just before I just go off the deep end. But they're really still struggling with that with their spouse. Because I want to tell you, that we all know this, there ain't nobody that can get under your skin like your husband or your wife can. Listen, there ain't nobody that knows the chinks in my armor like my wife does. I mean, if she decides that it's time for me to pay, she knows exactly where to get me at. And she's such a loving woman that if it ever happens, I don't even have time to put up a defense. I mean, she just goes right for it's like, just got me right where, and I'm just, yeah. Brother just went like, yeah, just like that. And I mean, it's like strategically she has been waiting all these moments. If you ever go the wrong way, I know exactly where to get you. And I can't think quite like that. I'm not saving that. It don't seem like in my back pocket. And we'll do things, husbands, we'll do things, and we're like, well, there's nothing coming back. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle because if we feel like we're giving, and in our eyes we're giving, but a lot of times I've noticed that as much as I'm giving, or as much as I'm trying to give to my wife or love my wife, it's just not in the ways, it's not in her language, it's not in the ways that she's really wanting me to love her. It's the way that I think I would want to be loved if I was her. And then when I'm doing all this, I'm not getting anything back. Well, duh, that means you're doing something wrong. We're like, well, it worked 20 years ago. Well, that was 3 kids ago, too. You have to have a heart. You know what? I'm going to do this just because. It doesn't matter. I'm a grown man. I tell you, I think some bad words sometimes in my mind. I'm a grown man, and if I'm going to do this because I think it's special, maybe she'll enjoy it. If she don't, I'm going to try something different next time. We'll just see if we get any kind of little spark out of it. If we don't, we're going to do something different next time. We're going to try something different. But I don't have to get repaid because I'm just trying. I'm just trying my very best to love her like God wants me to love her. Because to be honest with you, I think she knows where to hit me at, but she ain't got nothing on God. So you see, this is where we're really going to. She ain't got nothing on God. And the only possible way that I'm ever going to be able to love her like she wants to be loved and like I need to love her is that me and God get really close in our relationship about how this thing should work. This love is without demanding or without expecting repayment. It's love so great that it can be given to the unlovable or the unappealing. Oh, my. Well, they've just changed over the years. They've grew into somebody that I didn't marry. Have you ever had a dog? Have you ever had a cat? Have you ever had anything? They change when they get older. Everybody does. Did we think humanity wasn't going to change? The idea is hopefully we're kind of changing together. Now, things happen. I'm not Dr. Special here that could give you all the remedies. I can't. I'm fighting this battle just like you're fighting this battle. And we've got people that are much more qualified in marriage than I am that can give you their life stories that can tell you, how, there's just times where, you're just not applying the word. You're just really not, like I'm just not loving my wife like I should be because I'm wrapped up in myself. I'm wrapped up in my job. I'm wrapped up in ministry, and I'm neglecting some things that should be the most special things. It's love that loves even when it's rejected. Oh, so love your wife's husband even though she keeps rejecting you. Oh, boy, it just makes me mad when I get rejected. I mean, I married her. She married me. I thought that was like sealing the deal, that I could just, I could have my way whenever I wanted to. Little did I know it was the exact opposite. Exact opposite. But husbands, you're supposed to love. That's what God did. We rejected him, probably not he come to us, I don't know about you guys, I don't know about this, I don't know. I mean, the process of me getting saved had God kind of, using different individuals, dropping some seeds in the way, some little, taste of God in the way, and I was just, I don't know about this. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Is that right? is this really God? Is this me? I wasn't really sure. So we rejected God, but He still loved us. Agape love gives and loves because it wants to. Oh, there's the bit. I shouldn't have to make this happen. It should be because I want to. It's tough a lot of the times. I won't tell anybody that I've been married 20 years, and I've stated this before. I don't know as much as some of you, but I know something. Or we wouldn't have stayed married 20 years. And it's tough. There's no doubt about it. And I promise you this. When I want to sever the relationship in my mind, because I really, it's never, and Mom's in the house this morning, but it's just never been part of my equation, Mom. I made a commitment that divorce is not an option. It's not an option. I just made this. I don't care. I'll be miserable. I mean, I ran 13 miles yesterday with about 1,400 feet of elevation. I was miserable yesterday. I can be miserable. And I know you say, you're just saying that. You got to be miserable. I'm not talking about getting beat on. I'm not talking about things that are ungodly. But I'm talking about there's things. My wife is a godly woman. And there's still things that happen that tick me off. And I'm just not going to have that option. And I'm going to make things work, and I hope she makes things work. And the way that it's going to happen is, first and foremost, we're going to have to love God individually and have a relationship with Him. And that's kind of what I'm saying is when things are messed up, I want to tell you, I get with God about that and about how I need to love Him and what's messed up in my life. And it's very quickly that I got to fix the way I'm loving my spouse. Because, you know, God is just a lot bigger than everything else. Agape love gives and loves because it wants to. It doesn't demand or expect repayment, as I already said, from the love given. It gives because it loves. It does not love in order to receive. So we can read the passage and think Paul means husbands, be kind to your wife. We could read husbands, be nice to your wife. There's no doubt that for many marriages, probably even presently today, this would be a great, huge improvement if you just be nice to your wife, husband. If you just be kind to her. But that isn't what Paul's really writing about. What he really means is husband, continually practice self-denial, agape love for the sake of your wife. And don't be bitter toward her because you're practicing self-denial. See, that's the next thing. You want to be upset because you're trying to do what God wants you to do, and you're bitter about it because you got to do it, and you don't think you should have to. He knows how to hit a man right where he. Oh, she won't wash. I wash the dishes. I don't need her. You've been a better. What refrigerator would have been clean? This is all that I went through this morning. Every bit of it. I was mad at every woman in my house this morning. Every one of them. All four of them. Didn't let none of them know it. This won't be online till tomorrow, so they probably won't watch it no way. So, but I didn't say anything. I just did what had to be done. But I really wanted to get aggravated about it, and I wanted to be bitter about it. And that's what he's talking about. I wasn't real sure about exactly what he meant, but this is exactly what he meant. Don't be bitter because you're doing what I want you to do. Don't be bitter because you're self-denying and you're sacrificing and you're doing things that you can't do the things you want to do because you're trying to love your wife and your spouse like you know. Don't be bitter toward her because of that. Don't be bitter toward them. There's no doubt that this is a tough pill to swallow. Don't be bitter toward them. The implication is perhaps that the wife has given the husband some reason to be bitter. So Paul says, this doesn't matter, husband. The husband may feel perfectly justified in his harsh, terrible, terrible attitude and actions toward his wife, but he's not justified in those terrible actions, no matter how the wife has been toward the husband. That's hard to swallow that. Agape love. Even when there are obvious and glaring deficiencies, even when the receiver is unworthy of the love, still love. That is a tough, tough challenge, men. That is a high, high standard. And at the very beginning of this, I know that I don't get there like I need to. But I know one thing. If you ain't trying, I'm trying harder than you. If we're going to compare it, because men like to compare each other with each other, you know. That's why I have to wash dishes, because Ricky Carroll washes dishes. So if I'm going to outdo him, then he just comes up with something else. And then you know what happens? Next thing, I find out, without me even really knowing it, he's mentoring me how to be a better husband. And he didn't even mean to. But that's how God works it. See, we joke around a lot of times, but a lot of times there's a little truth to what we're really joking about. And I just believe if you get a relationship with God like it needs to be, He can get to you in all different ways. And when you get a hold of a scripture like this, you start thinking about some stuff. And I'll just be honest with you, there's been a lot of times, and I don't even know if it's true. It may just be just fiction. But there's times when I've washed dishes at my house because I heard Ricky Carroll wash his dishes at his house. And I think it's true. He says it's true. His wife's laughing at him, so I'm supposing it's true because she's not calling him out on it. Amen. And it's different for every relationship. Every relationship. You know, my wife loves me washing the dishes, but there's some things that she just soon me not touch. So it's different for everybody. There's some things she don't want me messing with them. She don't care. First of all, I'm not going to be able to do it like she wants it done, so she just don't want me messing with it. And I've noticed there's some things, too, that I really, I'll take care of this. And that's great. And everybody works that out individually. But today, I have done well and spent 30 minutes on men today. I didn't think I could, but I did. And boy, I tell you, ladies in the church, I honor you. I honor my wife. And I know that, man, I just don't get where I need to get to love her. And I feel like as the leader of my household, that's why Paul writes that. He says, hey, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands, but boy, husbands, you better love your wives. And when I start really looking at it, boy, it challenges me to do a much, much better job. And then I realize when I study, it's got to be more than words. Words can't express it. So I'm going to close with this. I thought probably the greatest thing, and I hope my wife never watches this video, because I hope maybe one day that, and don't you tell her this, because this is really from my heart, I thought probably the best thing that she could ever tell me in my life. And I kind of had this, I had this little vision, dream. It might be written on a card one day. I don't know. Maybe when we're hopefully really old, we might be in a nursing home. That that she can't describe in words how I love her. That words can't express that. Because really, that's what it should be. That you can't put an adjective on how you love your wife. That they can't say, that if they do try, that there's not enough. There's not really a way to describe it. Because that's what it really is. It's not just the agape, but God is love. And you can't express with one word how big that love is. And that's how we're to love our wives. And then obviously, we talked about Ephesians, how Christ loved the church and gave his life. I mean, self-denial. So God bless you, husbands and wives. Maybe down the road we'll get to the children. Amen. God bless you. Fellowship one another.